Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for our second Facebook Live Q&A with Summit Common Council members. Today, Dr. Jaime Levine, Council Member at Large, and Delia Hamlet, Ward 1 Council Member, are here to receive your comments and answer your questions. Hello, Council members. Welcome.
Thank you.
You are the two newest members on the dais. Before we start with some questions from viewers, I think it could be interesting for our audience to learn a bit about your backgrounds and the experience you bring to council. Let's start with Councilmember Levine.
Sure. Thank you, Amy. Hello, Summit. I'm pleased to be here today. Pleased to be one of your newest council members here. My background that I bring to council is I am a physician. I have spent my career caring for patients who have survived a brain injury. I've also done a lot of volunteering around town. A special interest of mine is land use, and that has been represented through my service on the zoning board as well as volunteering at the Reeves Reed Arboretum.
Excellent. And now Councilmember Hamlet.
Thank you, Amy, and just super excited to be here. And as Amy mentioned, I'm the newest council member, so I'm excited to be here today. And I have 3 children. I own a business down in Fort Monmouth, which is a fitness facility. So it's about a 55,000 square foot fitness facility, and we just opened about 15 months ago. We have almost 2,000 members. So that keeps me busy with the 3 kids. And the committees that I'm working on here in Summit, initially, Parks and Recreation, Parking, and I'm on Law and Labor.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for your service, and we're looking forward to seeing you in action. Councilmember Hamlet, you're serving on the Community Programs Committee as their liaison. You just mentioned that. Can you tell us about the Maybe Playground project and what we should expect to be happening soon?
Sure. Well, we just submitted for a grant for Maybe Playground in the amount of about $100,000. So it's to be determined whether or not we get that grant. In prior years, we had about $300,000 set aside for Maybe, so we have a long way to go. We just got the plans back on Friday, the initial renderings. Mark has those from Parks and Rec. I actually haven't seen them yet, but I know that we've had a lot of feedback from the community, and we'll continue to get updates and requests from the community. So I'm really looking forward. I should see them this week, and I think, we're hoping shovel in the ground this year. My children went to CPC, so I know that it's certainly something that needs to be completely renovated and ADA accessible, and we're very excited to get that started.
Okay. Do you know what the total budget is? Is there an estimated budget for the project? Do you know if we get the $100,000 grant and there's
Sure.
$300,000 set aside, how much more do we need to raise?
They think it's going to be about $1 million project. But I haven't seen the plan, so I'm actually really looking forward to looking at the costs associated with all the equipment as well.
Okay, great. Councilmember Levine, as a member of the Capital Projects Committee, you mentioned that you're now focused on city infrastructure. Please explain what that means and give an example of what you're working on in committee.
Sure. Thank you, Amy. So I'm working on city infrastructure, which is so much of what keeps our city running and running well that we can't fully see and appreciate. Things that are occurring underground that help support our electrical grid, the sewer system, the gas lines, all of that. So what is so neat about our committee system here on our local government is that council members change committees annually. And the reason we do that I am seeing is most of the biggest, most important issues that we face in city government cut across multiple committees. When I started my role on council, I was chairing the Safety and Health Committee. And of course, safety is such a huge paramount issue for all of us. And I focused on the safety and health standpoint from the point of view of public health as well as enforcement. Now on the Capital Projects Committee, I'm focused among other things, also continuously largely on safety, but now I'm looking at it from the infrastructure and engineering standpoint, which is just fascinating. That includes things like traffic safety, intersection safety for pedestrians, drivers alike, the quality, the status of our roads, how that impacts safety, and just overall our experience commuting around town.
Excellent. Awesome. All right. So lately we've heard a lot about the seasonal closing or not of Maple Street. Please update us on the process and share your priorities moving forward. Okay.
Should I go first?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sure. So that is an important question. We are in the phase now where we are talking actively with residents, with business owners, as well as restaurant owners on Maple Street to determine what is best for our community from a safety standpoint, from an enjoyment standpoint, as well as an economic viability and feasibility standpoint from restaurants. I think one thing we all know is that people do enjoy this closure of Maple Street, and regardless of how we have asked this question among residents, we've seen each time that many more people want the street closed. We just need to determine the amount of time that is the key length of time to have the street closed.
What do you think, Councilmember Hamlet?
You know, I've spoken to, everybody in town about Maple Street, and I know some people like it, some people don't. So, I see both sides of it. What I have done is I've spoken to the city administrator and asked him to take more of a quarterback role on this and really work with the lawyer to find out what is actually possible, because it doesn't make sense for residents to be at meetings till 1 a.m. talking about something that we may or may not be able to do. But I think that we are really making progress on finding a solution, and I've requested the safety studies that were done for Maple Street, so I look forward to getting them, and I know that we're going to have to do them as the new firehouse is done anyway, so I look forward to seeing those studies, and I think nature's just going to take its course on this one.
Okay, so there's a question from Rachel here, and it's specifically for Councilperson Levine, but of course you can answer too, Councilmember Hamlet. This question is about your position regarding the duration of any potential closure to Maple Street. On December 9th, you posted that, I believe traffic and parking to be far less of a burden in the summertime. You also shared a link to an article with the following quote, At-large Councilmember Jaime Levine supports a seasonal closure, believing that traffic and parking are far less of an issue during July and August than at other times of the year. Can you confirm specifically if by seasonal you mean the actual season of summer? If not, can you please clarify the duration of the closure that you do support as seasonal, if it means different things, since it means different things to different people?
Thank you, Rachel, for that question. I really appreciate you reading my posts on social media. So we've had a lot of dialogue with restaurants to see what is viable for them. And as it turns out, a brief 8-week closure is not feasible from a restaurant standpoint. So it's not something we would pursue. So we're seeing what, beyond that, without being too extensively beyond that, what would be possible that would be in the best interest of Summit as well as the restaurants. Don't worry, we're not seeking a 7-month-a-year closure or anything like that.
Excellent.
Well, I think that, again, nature's going to take its course on this one. We have to just wait and see the data, work with all of the parties involved, including the chief of police, the fire chief, the city administrator, Mr. Giacobbe, because I don't know whether or not the road can even be closed. And I do think that if we had some public engagement tools where we could actually get more feedback from the community, that would be helpful. And I know I've spoken with Amy about that, and the more feedback we get, the better. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love today that we're connecting with the community and getting council to field some of these questions. Here's a fun one. This one's a good one. Later this spring, a dog park will be installed at the municipal transfer station. Many people express happiness that is returning after the successful trial run. But there are some people who posted that they wish the dog park was located somewhere other than the dump, where you need a permit to enter, and it is closed on Sundays and Mondays and most days at 3:45 p.m.
Sure. That's a great question. I mean, interestingly enough, I don't think I'd want to have my dog down at the dump. It's just personal. I don't think it's the right spot. I think maybe we need to go back to the drawing board, but if the public comes back and says that that's exactly where they want it, then I think we need to punt and look at some different options. I think we have some other, maybe we do some pop-ups, try some different things. I don't want to squash the entire dog park idea, but I'm not sure it's the best location. I think we have to have some conversations.
Yeah. I don't see any harm in having some pop-up dog parks on Tatlock or in Memorial Field, trying in more residential neighborhoods and seeing what kind of crowds that draws.
And maybe the dog park at the transfer station is good for the people who live in that part of Summit who,
Sure.
you know, might walk in Passaic River Park. And
Sure.
So,
Yep.
yeah, so that those options are very interesting. Thank you. The communications office recently received a question by email from Neil. When is Summit Avenue going to get repaved? It is a disaster to drive on. Drivers heading toward Route 24 regularly drive in the opposite lane to avoid the terrible conditions. It has become a hazard. Let's let Ms. Infrastructure
Sure.
talk about that one.
Neil, I agree with you 100%. Summit Avenue is treacherous. There are canyons, there are trenches. It is not safe. In fact, I have actually have a good friend who shared with me, who lives in the neighborhood, that 2 of her vehicles are actually in the shop from driving on Summit Avenue. This is something that is hugely important, and we are so lucky that our engineer is so diligent and so and following up so often with the county. Unfortunately, it's a county road. It's part of the Union County paving project. We had hoped it would have been closed before the winter freeze, but the asphalt plants are closed for the winter. It is supposedly slated for as soon as spring begins to be among the first, if not the first, hopefully paved. But I agree. What I am doing from an infrastructure standpoint is we are driving the area, we are looking at the worst spots and seeing if we can't find a way just to do something like a patch or some sort of quick temporary, albeit temporary, something that won't be permanent fix to tide us over. But yes, I agree with you, Neil.
And I'd like to jump in as well. I was actually going back and forth with our city engineer this morning, and I said, Aaron, can you just let the public know what the plan is? Like, can we just have, you know, street by street what's going to be? And he actually sent me that, and I can have him post that later. But the other thing that I've asked Aaron to, and I'm not even sure if it's possible, but let's hold the county accountable on this, and let's get actual documentation that says exactly when Summit Avenue is going to be paved. Let's have it on paper, hold them to it, and hold them accountable.
Absolutely. And as soon as the communications office gets that information, we are going to share it with the community. So I encourage everyone to go to our website and sign up for notifications so that when it's posted, it gets pushed directly to you. You don't have to search for it. You'll just receive it. All right, great. Now, I see another question from Rachel. She said her internet cut out and it wasn't ours this time. She wants to know the rationale restaurants gave for not closing just for July and August. Was it financial? And I heard a discussion yesterday about how it's difficult to hire employees just for 8 weeks. Is there anything else beyond that?
I think that's it. Largely it's staffing. It could take up to a month to train a waiter or waitress to work in that environment, as well as the year-round rental of space for storage of the outdoor equipment is quite prohibitive when you're just using it for a short period of time, and a few other logistics like that.
Okay, great. All right, so this is a question from Jeff sent in by email for Councilmember at Large Levine, and oddly not for Councilmember Hamlet, but of course I'd like you to answer too. If the decision was entirely up to you, what size buildings would you like to see for Broad Street West? Do you like the multi-building proposal suggested at the Residence for Summit Town Hall?
Thank you, Jeff, for asking that question of me. I haven't had a lot of chance to, with a public forward face, speak about Broad Street West as of yet. I too live in this city and have absolutely no reason to wish to have an extra large, massive building in my community. That is not something I'm interested in. I don't know that I have the nimble language to tell you precisely the square footage I'd be looking at, but the concept of a multi-building plan is very appealing to me. I am familiar with the plan you talked about that was presented, and that concept is, yes, appealing to me.
I'll say, I campaigned mostly on Broad Street West, and I'm encouraged by, we just started conversations last week. I'm encouraged by them. I think at the end of the day, we will see something on Broad Street West. Personally, I'd love to see a mix of maybe some apartments and something that all the families can enjoy, more of a recreational, it really just depends on what is financially feasible. for the city, for the developer. I think we have a long way to go, but I think that I'm encouraged by everybody, at least on council, working together. And we've heard the residents, and we know that we've taken input from them, and we're looking forward to making something happen at some point.
Okay, great. Here's a question from a viewer. I'm not sure if you can field this question, and this is all in caps, so it's a very strong statement. Can the city please push the county to work on Bryant Pond?
Yeah.
So this is one that I've been
That's
super
from
passionate
Beverly.
about, and that's my ward down there, very close to that. And I've been now it's winter, so they're not going to be doing anything. But all of the permits are complete from what I understand. So I will follow up with Rick Mateus, the county engineer, and Aaron Schrager. It has to be fixed. It looks terrible. And again, let's hold the county accountable.
Yeah, exactly. There are plans, I think, put out to bid for it to be first hydro raked, which is where the muck and guck at the bottom and any rooted vegetation is removed and cleaned, and then an aeration system to be placed within to bring oxygen down below the surface of the water to make it healthy water, a nice healthy pond, and that is the plan. Absolutely.
I think we might be beyond hydro raking though at this point. It's just, it looks terrible, and I mean it's insane how we've let it get this bad. So
Okay, and then Dory says, can you please let me know if the pond's going to be fixed this year, not just on the county agenda? Thanks. So let's look into that.
I'll personally go to a Union County meeting and ask that question because it's something that I'm passionate about.
Sure. In
Okay.
fact, I've recently invited the new director of Parks and Rec in Union County to join us at our next capital projects meeting. So we're waiting to hear if she has accepted the invitation.
That's great.
All right, you're on it. Thank you.
And you'll be invited too.
Thank
Delia.
Okay. All right. So, and again, this is just for Council Member Levine, but Council Member Hamlet, you can answer as well. This is from Patrick. How can homelessness be incorporated objectively and supported by local government in the city master plan? How do you personally hope to see it addressed with government resources?
Patrick, thank you for asking that question. I've actually said publicly that I think homelessness should be in the master plan, that I think it was an omission. So thank you for bringing that up. I've said this, to our mayor who does not disagree, and really to anyone else who've listened. I've reached out to Jay Brinkerhoff, my friend and colleague, and I said, can we work on addending or amending or adding? But I guess we're on the brink of a new master plan in the next few years. The revision done in 2016 is already almost 10 years ago. So yes, it should be added. How are we working on this problem? Well, there's quite a bit of activity happening. I have to actually credit our mayor for succeeding in getting a room filled with all of the key stakeholders who are looking at, who are working on solving this problem. Everyone from Overlook Hospital, discharge planning, social work, case management, transit police, summit police, Bridges Outreach, SHIP, Summit Warm Hearts, Grace, trying to think, council, mayor, you name it, members of the public are all there. And that has now spun off into a work group that is meeting regularly, and perhaps some of us are actually meeting this coming Thursday night. But anyhow, the right people are together in the right way, making real progress by working together.
Excellent. Anything to add?
And it's obviously an important issue. I think what we really need to be focused on is that point in time number, which is, how many homeless do we have right now? And, there's 4 different categories, I think. There's homeless who will never go into a shelter. There's homeless who have mental illness, who need help. So there's all these different buckets, and I think we need to really work hard to make sure that we're helping everybody in a different way, because everybody's different. They're all, and we really need to focus, and I know the mayor has been having a lot of different meetings. I haven't been as involved in them just as I'm just starting, but I think that we have to get a handle on the train station, because there have been some incidents at the train station, and I'd like to learn more about how we can hold New Jersey Transit accountable so that our police officers don't have to stay there every day keeping our children safe who go on the train.
Okay, great. Okay, here's a fun question. Are either of you planning to run for mayor?
No.
Not this year.
No.
Okay.
No, thanks. Not this year.
Okay, great. All right, and then following up on the possible Maple Street closure, we're going to keep talking about this for a bit.
Sure.
I am hearing a lot about what is feasible and financially beneficial for the restaurants, but there are other businesses on and surrounding that street in the entire downtown. Closing Maple Street has an impact on the entire city. What are the specific steps being taken ahead of any possible closure, since it's not financially beneficial for restaurants to close just for 8 weeks? What information is being provided to council from these restaurants? Has any data been provided from 2020, 2021, and 2022? And that's from Brittany.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that question. I'm happy to start, or if you wanna jump in. So I'll just provide a little bit of extra information. So one thing we're thinking about is that concept of fairness. How is this? We don't want something that just benefits some and causes any detriment to others. The idea is that something will benefit as many people as possible. A concept that I like, that I was hoping to hear a little more from SDI's planner, that I've since had a lot of conversations with stakeholders about, is the concept of giving more restaurants or businesses downtown some real estate on Maple Street in the summertime, or in the, whenever we define the seasonal closure as. For example, having a coffee cart there, a place where people could use this outside space in the morning time before it's too hot. Coffee draws everyone. Having a food truck. People can rent these out in blocks of a week or 2 weeks and sell their food or their goods or their beverage on Maple Street, and have some public seating there is an idea. I've also broached other concepts where people can sell goods in a way, non-food goods, similar to a farmer's market, but small areas there. And the idea is, as many people that can benefit, if we can make it feasible, I would absolutely love to do that. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Okay. I would say on the flip side, what I'm hearing from a lot of the business owners on Maple Street, not necessarily all the restaurants, but when you look at Salon 44 or Boutique 18, it's actually hurting their business. So I think we have to include the people who it's helping and the people who it's hurting. And for some business owners there, it's hurting them. So I think we have to look at both sides.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, great. Here's a question for both of you from Kevin. What are your positions continuing to use topology as our city planner, considering he feels they've done a poor job guiding and advising the city thus far? There are many major mistakes they have made and are largely responsible for the Broad Street West debacle. I don't understand why we haven't looked for other capable planners at this point. There certainly are others out there.
I'm happy to start.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Kevin, I agree with you. I agree with you and I disagree with you. I agree with you. Broad Street West is a debacle and was a debacle. But where I disagree is I don't think it was all topology's fault. I don't think it was just topology. Why, when I joined council, I've been looking hard. Why do we need a planner to begin with? If we know what we want and we have a developer, an architect, what is the role of a planner there? Why was this planner chosen? I've learned why they were chosen. They were instrumental they were partnered with Summit to create the master plan. And then when we're looking to redevelop an area in a way that's complementary to that master plan, it did make sense to hire them. Are there many other planners? As it turns out, there's not a lot of other qualified planners. So it's complicated, but I don't think it was all topology's fault of why why there was a debacle.
I will say, I campaigned on saying fire topology, and I was very vocal around that. I think they made a ton of mistakes. With that being said, I think they're trying to reverse course, and I called our city administrator the other day and I said, hey Michael, it seems way too soon to be voting on whether or not we should be renewing topology's contract. And I said, let me give you an idea. Since we have such bad blood here and it hasn't been working, why don't they just give us a few months free, pro bono, to make this right? Now that's just my suggestion. I'm sure that's not going to go over well. But we have had our first initial meetings last week with topology. I agree with you, Kevin. I think it was a complete disaster, but I've been told there's no other capable planners. I'd love to hear another opinion from somebody else just to have a sanity check on this topic. But yeah, I said they should be fired. But I do think we're going to lose some momentum if we don't have at least a few conversations with them. And that's why I think it's an important topic, and it's going to be coming up soon.
And I heard those initial meetings with them went pretty well. That
So the prior, so I watched the Broad Street West scenario unfold as a resident, just like all of you who are watching. But now that I'm here as council, I learned that the process in the past had been a steering committee that just contained several council members, just 3, did, the majority of the planning and the work. Now that steering committee has been dissolved, and now what's happening, a new approach is each council member is having an equal say in participating at every stage through a series of rotating 3-person meetings throughout the entire process. So earlier when I said it wasn't all topology's fault, I mean the process that it was in the past where just a few people were making decisions and then the rest of council had to quickly catch up and try to get up to speed in time for a vote without participating at the table and having their voice heard, not when they're deciding whether they agree with or disagree with what their colleagues had done and had decided, but rather be there at the table as the ideas are forming, developing, and changing. We know that it only takes one voice at a table to completely change the outcome of a group project, and that is a real thing. And now we're going to have that chance, that dynamic flow constantly to impact and influence the decision, the direction that this project goes. And I think that process is I feel confident in it.
that sounds great.
And I think at the end of the day, at least from right now, the city administrator is doing the right thing as far as engaging the right people. So I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged that we're at least moving in the right direction. Time will tell. We truly haven't gotten the details of anything to even comment on what we're seeing makes sense or doesn't make sense. I can only tell you that we're encouraged by Michael's dedication of putting the right people at the table, and we just have to hope for the best.
All right, so Kevin came back with, there absolutely are other planners. Chatham fired topology and hired a new one. The idea that there aren't others capable is not accurate. And he mentions that Residents for Summit hired a capable planner. So,
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Has to
All
be
right.
other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Teresa is saying, if possibly opening up to other restaurants, why are we focusing on just Maple Street then? Why not look at other streets that might not impact traffic as much and not one of 3 through streets?
That's another good question. I'm happy to follow up with my committee about that. But one thing unique to Maple Street is the width of the sidewalks and the trees that emerge from the street precludes those restaurants from having sidewalk cafes or sidewalk dining, whereas all the restaurants on Springfield Avenue, I can't say all, but probably most that I can envision, have quite a bit of sidewalk space for outdoor dining. Same with Union Place, if you can envision that, whereas Maple Street can't have any outdoor dining if they don't use the actual street itself. They can't have sidewalk dining. So that is, I think, one reason. But I'm happy to thank you, Teresa, for that. I'm happy to take a closer look at that concept.
I think the most important thing to remember is there's only a few streets that run this way in Summit, and a lot of people that I speak to, it does increase their commute time, whether it's getting kids to school or sometimes it takes an extra 5 or 6, 7 minutes, and that is significant when you're looking at getting the train. So I recommend we do a traffic study right now and see how well it's flowing without it shut down.
Okay. All right, great. I think that's all the questions that we've had so far. We did hear from Rachel just a minute ago saying, can you define what you mean by seasonal closure? And I think you said that you're still trying to figure that out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So is there anything either of you would like to share or add?
I think for me right now, my biggest concern is safety and crime. I think we've seen an uptick. Most recently, there was 2 burglaries on Friar Tuck, the Aston Martin dealership the other day. I think that we have to come up with some solutions on making residents feel safer. I'm getting emails every day that people don't feel safe, and to me that is very impactful. I think we need, the chief gave an update today, which is great, but I think that instead of always talking about Maple Street, Broad Street West, let's get a handle on what's going on within our boundaries here, because as Jaime and we had a heated discussion even before this on how do we make the residents feel safe.
Right, and I agree. I'm going to echo your sentiments that safety, we can't have a healthy community and society without providing for that safety. Absolutely. And while we can't comment on an ongoing investigation, I just want to mention one thing that, one measure that I've championed before and announced publicly that I would highly support to help prevent crimes from occurring before they occur, which is to augment this geofence that we have, existing automatic license plate readers, these cameras, that will notify us if a stolen vehicle enters our municipality, and a person can be apprehended before they commit a crime. So while all of this is ongoing investigation, we don't know. What's on my mind is, did these crimes occur, were the people brought to Summit in vehicles that were stolen? If so, they would have likely been picked up with this type of system. The police have asked us for this. They have asked us for this as a way for them to help themselves to do their job and keep us safe. They've brought this to council and said, is there room in the capital budget? And I hope there is, and I've said that publicly before, so I wanted to bring that up now in this very meaningful context as something we can actively do to hopefully deter the amount of these types of acts that occur in our city.
And Jaime and I were speaking earlier. I had probably a 45-minute conversation with the chief of police, and we were talking about how when our residents email us that they don't feel safe, and we had a conversation. I had a conversation with the chief. I said, Chief, I don't know what the answer is, but we clearly have to do something. And I texted him a little bit later, and I said, Chief, aren't tinted windows illegal, like the front windows? And it turns out they are. I think we need to look into pulling anybody over with tinted windows in the front. I think it could be a way to eliminate some of this. We talked about it earlier, and because there's just not a need for vehicles to be roaming around our neighborhoods with 4 tinted windows. It doesn't make anybody feel safe.
Excellent ideas. I just want to circle back to say, I know the police department has been applying for grants to offset the cost of this very expensive technology. So that's moving forward. We're trying to get the funding, trying to put that in place. And then I also know that the safety committee, the council's safety committee with the mayor, city administrator, and the police chief are actively working to come up with creative solutions to some of the crimes that are happening in town. The police chief did also put some burglary prevention tips on the city website. So if you go to the city website and look in the news feed, they're listed there, and there are some very helpful suggestions that will hopefully help people feel a little bit safer if they implement them. I saw from Rachel, she said, thanks to you both, 2 great additions to the dais.
Thank you.
Dory says, I appreciate your honest feedback. Thank you both for coming in today and for doing this. Dory also asks, if tinted windows and lack of front license plates are illegal, then people should be ticketed. Sure, right?
I think we need to put it up for discussion because I don't see any reason why we couldn't have an ordinance or encourage the police to do this. It seems like a no-brainer to me.
Sure. Susan says, thanks, Delia and Jaime. And Patrick says, thank you for both of you answering questions candidly. And Kevin says, thanks to you both for doing this. So thank you both.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, this has been great.
Thanks, Amy.
All right.
Thank you, Amy.
So
Thank
we'll
you
wrap
very
up
much.
now, and
Great.
this will be posted on the city YouTube channel.
Thanks for
If
doing this.
anybody wants to, if you want to
Appreciate it.
send it out to your constituents.
Thank you.